How's it going, people, and welcome back to probably our final episode of our databases series. In terms of the main content, of course I will still go over some optional features of databases if you want me to, but like in the last video we pretty much implemented our profile system that we wrote in way back in episode 12, but this time we rewrote the whole thing to work with a database and not a JSON file. So so far in our code that we've got here, we've got a working profile command. So it's going to check if the user executing this command doesn't have their profile information in our database. Once that check is done, it's going to say true or false, and based on the outcome, it will either store our user details into our database or it will just load our profile up as normal. So we've got our basic profile system set up, but now let's get on to the actual leveling up side of things. So we need to program our bot to add XP every time a user sends a message, right? And that's what we did here in our existing profile system when the message created event handler fires, because it's going to fire for every single message that sends, right? So what we did down here was pretty much code something that can add XP to a user. So what we've done is make this add XP method right here, and that's going to add XP to a user based on what level they are, and if they reach their XP limit, then it's going to level up. So say for example our XP limit is 100, and if our XP reaches that limit or it exceeds that limit, then it's going to level up. So that means it's going to increment our level by 1. And then if we have a look at our add XP method here, that's what it's doing. It's just reading our JSON file. It's going to get that specific user based on their username and their and their guild ID, and then it's going to add XP to them. So what I'm going to do is pretty much build on this. So I'm going to make it so that if the user has a higher level, then they're going to accumulate less XP. And that also means they have to send more messages to level up, right? And that makes sense. It's just much more realistic, right? So this is all cool and all. So it's just set to add so this is just set to add 0.5 to the user's XP no matter what level they are. So we're going to build on this, but it's going to work in exactly the same way. But what we're changing is, once again, our XP, and we are also going to change this to work with a database and not a JSON file. Let's finally get on to implementing our leveling up system. Alright, so first of all, let's actually code our sort of XP accumulation. So once again, as I said, the higher the user level is, the less XP they're going to get. So we're going to have some sort of boundaries. So for example, from level 1 to level 5, they can only accumulate, I don't know, like 10 XP. And then from level 5 to level 10, they're going to get less XP, like half of that, so like 5. Along with those boundaries, we're going to also set the XP threshold. So for example, if a user is at level 1, they're going to have an XP threshold of, I don't know, 100. And then if they get to level, I don't know, 5 or 6, then let's actually increase that to 200 or something. So that way, what's going to happen is when a user starts to level up, they start to get less XP, and also they have to send more messages to level up because their XP limit has been raised. So they'll get less XP, but they're going to have a higher XP limit, if that makes sense, right? So let's just code a method to determine what this XP increment value and the XP threshold will be for a specific user. The first number is going to be our XP increment value. The second number is going to be their the XP limit, so their new XP threshold. Let's set this value to a double, because we might have some decimals in there, so increment XP by, I don't know, 1.5, 1.25. It will get smaller the higher the level is. And then let's make the XP limit as an int, so it's just going to be a set number like 100, 200, 300 and so on. And let's name this determine XP async. So this is just going to get our values for our XP increment amount and our XP limit. So let's just name it XP async, right? And obviously what we're going to do is pass in our username and guild ID, because what we want to do here is see what the user's level is, and then based on that level we're going to set them an increment amount and an XP limit. So let's say string username, and once again ulong guild ID, or server ID to keep with our naming standard. So server ID. So what we need to do first of all is get, get the user that we're passing in, right? So I think what we need to do is just execute this get user async method. So it just makes your life a lot easier. So let's say var user is equal to await, and then let's say get user async. So get user async, not get type. So get user async based on our username that we pass in, the server ID that we're passing in here. So this should contain our D user. Cool. So now what we're going to do is take a look at this user's level. Based on that level, we're going to set the XP increment amount and then the new XP limit. So let's say switch, and then let's switch the user's level. So let's say user item 2, because that's the D user, and then let's say the level. So based on what their level is, we're going to set those values. So let's do our first case, and this should give you a very good idea of what I mean. So let's say case, and we'll just say int level, and we're going to say our first boundary. So let's say when our level is greater than or equal to 1 and level is less than or equal to, let's just say 5. So from level 1 to level 5, what are we going to do here? We're going to set those values. So let's return, and let's put in 2 values. So let's put, I don't know, 10 as our XP increment value, and let's set the XP limit to something like 100. So when a user's level is 1 and 5, they'll be able to get 10 XP per message, and their XP limit will be 100 for these levels over here. So hopefully this should give you a better idea of what I'm trying to do. I'm basically setting boundaries for each level, and I'm setting it a different XP increment amount and a different XP limits, right? So let's do our second case, and like you'll see what I mean. So let's do like another case, and then int level, when level, and let's do above 6 this time. So when level is greater than or equal to 6, because it's after 5, right? And then let's say level is less than or equal to 10. So from level 6 to level 10, let's set something. So let's set the XP, let's set the XP increment amount to half of what this is. So let's say 5. And then let's set the XP limit to 200. So once again, the higher the level they are, like the less XP they'll get, but they have to send more messages because our XP limit is higher. So from level 6 to level 10, they'll get 5 XP, but their new limit is now 200. So like that's a good example. And like we could do this for like loads of levels, from 10 to 15, from 15 to 20. This is literally up to you. And let's put in a default. So let's say like this user is put at a level that is outside of these boundaries. So let's say they're at level 20. So like what we'll do then is, after this switch statement, if it doesn't like go through these cases, we're going to set a default. So default over here, and we're going to say, so let's set this as our default. It's going to get the user based on their username and server ID, and then it's going to go through their level, and based on what their level is, it's going to give us 2 values that we can use to add XP. So these 2 values are what we will use in our add XP method, so that we know what amount of XP that we are adding and what the user's limit is, right? So this add XP method is going to be a bool, right? Because we want to know if it's like successfully added the XP onto this user. So this method is going to return a bool. So let's say public. So this is going to be public, bear in mind, because we'll be using this in our message created event handler, right? So let's say public async task, and then it's going to be a bool, and then let's say add XP async. Cool. And then this is obviously going to pass in our username and server ID once again. So let's say string username, and then ulong server ID. Alright, so first of all, let's get our XP values so that we know how much XP we want to add and what the user's XP limit is. So let's say var xp amounts equals to await, and then we say this method. So our username and server ID. So let's pass it all up here. So username and the server ID. If this is a success, this should now get our double, and that's our XP that we're adding on. And then this int value is going to be the XP limit, right? Now let's go to our database and get this user, and then let's change the values in their level XP or XP limit, columns. Now what we'll end up doing in this method is hopefully changing these two columns here, our XP and then the XP limit, columns here. So right now my user is level 1, right? So every message, it should get 10 XP per message, right? var connection equals new npg SQL connection. So this should be, so once again, this should be a standard practice. Now we get to actually make the SQL query to modify this data, right? So what we need to do is make an SQL query to modify this XP and XP limit column. This style of query is going to be very similar to our, store user async. Rather than saying insert, we're going to say update. So this is not going to be an insertion query. This is going to be an update query. So what we're going to do first is say update and then our table name. So what table, what is the table name that we're trying to update? So it's going to be our, data.userinfo. So there we go. So our data schema and then our user info table. So update and then let's say data.userinfo. So now what we're doing is updating something in this table. And this is where we get to say what it is we want to update. So now we are updating these two columns, right? Our XP and our XP limit columns. So let's say that. So let's say set XP. And then this is where we get to say what we get to increment our XP by. So let's say XP is going to be equal to our current XP plus our XP amount over here. So let's say our XP amounts, and then it's going to be item 1 because that's the double. That's going to be our, XP increment amount. So once again, if my level is between level 1 or level 5, then it's going to increment by 10, and the XP limit will be 100. So we've set that, and now let's set my, the XP limit to this second value over here. So our XP limit, so let's put a comma and let's say XP limit is going to be equal to this second value here. So now what we're doing is pretty much overriding this current XP limit value. We are pretty much adding to the current XP, but our XP limit is just overriding it. Our XP limit is always going to be a constant value, right? So let's put that in. So our XP limit is going to be equal to the XP amounts, and then it's going to be our item 2 because that's the int value. So it's going to get this number over here, our second number that we returned, right? Okay, so we've now set those columns, but then we have to say for which user. So this is where we get to say which user and which guild ID we want to set this to. So underneath, let's say where, and then we say, our username and then our server ID. So let's say where our username is equal to, in, single speech marks, put in our username. And then after that, let's say and our server ID. So making sure it's the correct spelling, yep, server ID. And that's going to be equal to our guild ID. So server ID. So this SQL query is going to update an entry in our data.userinfo where the username is equal to what we pass in, and it's going to update my XP and then my XP limit columns based on what I provide in here. So it's going to add 10 XP, or whatever this value may be. It's going to add that to my current XP, and then it's going to override my XP limit and set that to the new XP limit. So hopefully that makes sense, right? So now all we got to do is just execute this query, and that's that. It's literally as simple as that, right? So let's get our the npg SQL command once again. So let's say using var cmd is equal to a new npg SQL command. with my query and my connection, and all we got to do is just say await cmd and then execute, not reader, we say execute non-query async. So execute non-query async, because this is not going to get any information, it's going to perform a task, right? So alright, cool, that's all done. So now all we got to do is put this in a try catch statement and, you know, like satisfy this method. So all we got to do is say try and then paste in all of this code in here. So Control X, Control V, and then after this is all done, then we say true, because at this point it's done its thing. It's pretty much done. It's pretty much done updating like all of the columns that it needs to. So this method is now a success. So like now in the catch, then we say false. So catch an exception ex, and then as usual, let's just console.writeline it. So and then let's say false. Alright, cool. So that's, you know, like these two main methods. So far, this is just adding XP to the user. So let's give this a test first of all, and after that, let's worry about leveling up. So every time a user sends a message, we're going to execute that add XP method, right? So it's going to be very similar to what we're doing here, right? Okay, so let's go into our, you know, like, so let's say client and then our message created, because this event handler is always going to fire every time a user sends a message, as you lot should know by now, right? So let's make an event for that. So let's, you know, like, so like let's make the method and let's call it the message created handler, as usual. So this should be nothing new to you lot. It's all pretty standard, right? And let's code this in. So, all right, first of all, we need to make a new instance of the DB engine in here. So let's execute that method. So we wrote up here. So it's going to be add XP async. So let's make this into a variable once again. So let's say var, I don't know, let's say added XP, and this will be true or false, you know, based on the outcome. And let's say await DB engine, and then let's say add XP async. So what we're going to do is pass in the username and server ID. So it's going to be e.user, or maybe e.author, and then the username, and then the server ID should just be e.guild. Yeah, so e.guild and then ID. Alright, so this should just be a bool now, isn't it? Yeah, so it's bool added XP. Alright, so like as a test, let me just, you know, like check if this is true or false, and then I'm just going to console.writeline it, because obviously when we add the XP, it's literally like a background task, so there's no need to let the user know that they've accumulated XP. Only when they level up, then we send them the, you know, like the notification that they leveled up, and we'll do that later. But let's give this a test first of all. So let me just do like a, you know, short if statement saying if added XP is equal to true, then let's just say console.writeline, you know, like success, and then else let's put a fail. So console, and then let's say fail. So let's give this a short test. So like I'm not sure if this is going to work properly, but like we'll see. Obviously, you know, testing as we go. So let's give this a go. So let me just send a message, just some random message, and see if we get 10 XP. So test, and let's check our console. So it looks like we got a success. All right, so it looks cool. So let me refresh my database table, and let's see if we did get 10 XP. So let me press refresh, and yeah, boom, there we go. That is pretty cool, right? So we've got 10 XP right there. Like let's send like another message to see if this works. So let me refresh the, you know, let's refresh, and then yeah, it's pretty much incrementing by 10, man. That's pretty cool. So like we've got our XP method sorted out. So it's going to add XP every time a user sends a message. That's all cool, and you know, and like that's all working properly and as it should. So now the last step to do is when a user levels up. So when a user reaches this XP limit, so say if my XP is now 100 out of 100, this bot should be able to detect that, and it should pretty much reset the, you know, XP and level up. So like what should happen here is, you know, like level gets incremented by 1, our XP gets set to 0, and then our XP limit should, and when we level up, let's obviously send like a notification message saying that this user leveled up, just like we did in our previous code. So let's see what we're doing here. Yeah, so like we're sending like a level up embed saying that this user has leveled up, and then let's say what their level is, etc. But what we're going to do is do this in a separate method. In the old system, we were doing all this in our addXP method, and that's not really going to work in our databases because we're using multiple NPG SQL connections, right? And you know, like if we try and overwrite it, or you know, like if we try and run more than one NPG SQL connection, then it's going to conflict and cause errors. What we'll do is write a separate method for leveling up, and that should make life a lot easier. So let's make a similar method to this, and let's name it level up async. So it's going to be pretty similar, but what we're going to do is a similar update script, but not set XP or XP limit. Instead, what we're going to do is set level. So like it's going to be very similar to this SQL query over here. So let's say public async, and then obviously it's going to be a task and in the bool, and let's say level up async. And once again, this is going to pass in string username and then ulong server ID. There was a property called, you know, leveled up, and yeah, like there we go. So let's do the same thing over here. So this is obviously going to be public, so it's literally the same thing as last time. And let's obviously set this to false, because right now at no point in this class is a user leveling up. Only in this method is a user about to level up. So at some point in this method, we're going to set this equal to true. At the start of the method, let's set it to false, like just in case, because at any point this might be set to true accidentally, right? And let's once again get our XP async amounts, because when a user leveled up, their XP threshold might change. Say for example, they are leveling up from 5 to 6. That means their, you know, like XP limit is going to change from 100 to 200 XP amounts. And let's do that same thing again. So let's say await, and then let's execute that method. So based on our username that we're passing in here, and then the server ID that we're passing in up here. All right, cool. So now let's once again execute a similar update SQL script, but this time what we're going to do is set our level to the new level, and then we'll do the same thing over here. Set our XP limit to the new XP limit. So it's going to be overridden all the time, right? So let's once again open a new connection. So using var connection equals new NPG SQL connection with our connection string. So, and then let's open it. So connection, open async, and then let's write out our query once again. So string query. So this is going to be very similar to this add XP async, you know, like query once again. So let's say update, and then it's going to be in our data.userinfo. So let's say data.userinfo. And then what we're going to do is set our level and our XP limits. So let's say set, and then our level. So our level, you know, like column over here. So let's say level is equal to, once again, it's going to be similar to our XP, but like what we're doing is just adding 1 to it. So let's say level plus 1. Since a user is leveling up, let's add 1 to their XP. What we also need to do is reset their XP to 0, because it doesn't make sense for, you know, like someone to level up with 100 out of 100 XP, but then they still have 100 XP, and that doesn't make sense because they're just going to continue leveling up forever. So let's reset their XP value to 0. So let's say XP is equal to 0. Simple as that, right? And then let's set their XP threshold, so their XP limit, to our new XP value over here. So let's say XP limit is equal to XP amounts and then item 2, because that is the int. So let's say where our username is equal to, so let's say username, and then our server ID. So it's server ID, is it? Yeah, it's server ID is equal to our server ID. Alright, and that should work. So based on what we pass in our username and server ID, it's going to increment their level by 1, reset their XP to 0, and it's going to set them their new XP threshold. So hopefully that makes sense to you lot. So let's say, so like let's just execute this query. So once again, our, you know, like MPG SQL command. So using var cmd is equal to a new mpg SQL command with those two, like parameters, and then let's once again say await cmd and then execute non-query async. Cool. So let's once again put this in a try catch statement. So let's say try, and then let's copy and paste or like this code in. So let's control X and then control V. Alright, so at this point we return true, but this leveled up is still false at this point. So let's set this to true as well. So is leveled up is now equal to true, because at this point it's done its job. So it's leveled up, it's reset our XP, and it's set the new limit. So is leveled up is going to be true at this point. So now we can use this. Now the bot knows that someone is about to level up. And obviously in our catch, let's say false. So catch an exception. Alright, so that's all cool then. So this is our method for leveling up a user. Like now we need to implement this into our message created event handler and see if a user is literally about to level up. So if they are about to level up, then we execute this method over here. So first of all, let's get the user if they exist in this database, right? So let's say var user to check is equal to await db engine, and then let's get their user information. So let's once again say get user async. So let's pass in their like username, so e.author and then username, and then e.guild ID. Like this is going to get the user so that we can check their XP against their XP limit, so that we can check if that user has gone above or is equal to their like XP limit. So say if someone has 100 out of 100 XP or 105 XP out of 100, that means they've reached their limit and they're about to level up. So this is what we need to check, right? So what we're going to do is a short if statement saying if this user, so their XP value, is greater than or equal to their XP limit. So like that makes sense, right? If it's equal, then level up. If it's greater than it, then still level up. So let's say the user to check item 2 and then their XP limit. So if it's greater than or equal to this XP limit, then level up. Await db engine and then level up async. So it's only at this point that we say level up async, right? e.author username and then e.guild ID. So it's only at this point where the XP is greater than its limit, then it's only going to level up. Else, let's add XP as normal. So what we're going to do is actually just copy and paste this line, and then we can get rid of this whole thing. It's going to get their user if it exists, right? And then if that user's XP is greater than or equal to the XP limit, then it's going to level them up. Else it's going to add XP as normal. Our leveled up is going to be set to true. So let's send a nice message based on what we did last time and pretty much tell that user that that they've leveled up, right? So what we'll do then is say if the db engine dot leveled up is equal to true, then let's send a nice message. So let's say var leveled up embed equals a new Discord embed builder, and let's make it look cool. So let's say our color is equal to, I don't know, like Discord color. Title is, so let's say this user has leveled up. So in a nice so let's say in a string, let's say e.author username has leveled up. Pretty simple, right? And then let's set the description to what level they are. So like this is going to get the user details post leveling up. Their level is equal to user dot item 2 dot level, and that should be that. And then let's send it back. So let's say await e.channel send message async, and then let's send our leveling up embed. So embed is equal to leveled up embed. Alright, so let me just explain what we've done so far here. So even though it is the same kind of code as the one we did with the JSON file, it's very similar code, right? but like this is working like in a database, not in a JSON file. So what we're doing here is, is first of all, let's get our user if they exist, right? And then if their XP is greater than the XP limit, then we level them up. Otherwise, let's just add on XP as normal. And then if this leveled up has been set to true, so if someone has leveled up, then it's going to get their user details post leveling up, and it's going to send a nice leveling up embed message saying that, like, congrats, you've leveled up by 1 level. So let's give this a test. So let me save it and let's start the bot up. Hopefully this works with, no errors. So right now I have 20 XP and we get 10 XP since I'm level 1. So let's send 8 more messages and let's see if we get a nice message. So let's say 1, and let's just check to see if it still increments our XP. So yeah. So like there we go. My so it's still incremented by 10. So let's just carry on. So let's just keep spamming, and like, let's see like what is now. So it's 90. Okay. So let me send my final message. So now it's 100. My XP has now reached its XP limit because they're both equal. So next message I send, it should give me our level up message. And let's see. All right. So we've got an error. Okay. So like that's good. Okay. So let's test this out. Syntax error at or near a comma. So where has this gone wrong? It's gone, so line 170. Let's see where that is. Line 170. Over here. Okay, so it's errored here somewhere. Let's see why. Oh yeah. A stupid, like mistake. I need to put and here, not a comma. So where username is equal to that and the server ID is equal to that. So let's restart. So my XP is now 110, isn't it? So let me, refresh. No, it's still 100. Okay. So all right. So like let's send our next message, and it should get our leveling up message. Yeah, there we go. That's perfect. Okay, and it's errored. Okay, so it has leveled me up. I am level 2. Wait, let me refresh. Yeah, I'm level 2, and it's reset my XP. What's gone wrong here? Oh, it's because of the bot. All right, so I think I did this here. I think I first checked if it's a bot. Since this bot has sent a message, it's already fired this event handler. So what we need to do is actually first of all check if the user sending this message is a bot. Let's say if e.author is a bot, right? And then we check for the inverse. So in this if statement, we'll only filter out actual users and not bots. So let's copy and paste this whole entire code. So, and then let's paste it in there. So this event handler will only fire for non-bot users. So that should hopefully fix that error. And yeah, I've pretty much done everything correct here, haven't I? Yeah, so let's press start once again. And let's give that one last test. So my level is now 2. So let me just, like go on profile. And, like see if that still works. So let's say profile. And see if it, like still gets my XP. So yeah, my level is 2. And there's my, like there's my XP. So let me refresh. It's now 10. So let me do profile again. And it's going to, no, whoops, like wrong prefix. Yeah, man, it's cool. Okay, so let's just carry on sending messages. Let's carry on spamming messages. And yep, there you go. I've leveled up, and there's no errors this time, isn't it? Yeah, there's no errors. And if I refresh, then just like how it works in our JSON file, but now it's working in our database. So hopefully this all makes sense to you lot. Yeah, it's literally the same code as our JSON system, but instead it's just working in our database. That's literally it. And that's mostly going to be the end of this, database series. Now, obviously, there's a lot more that you can do with databases, but this series of videos should give you a nice, decent idea of what you can do with databases. There's much more that you can store in a database. It's not just user information. Bear this in mind. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Like, all of this code will be available in that GitHub repo that will be in the description. As usual, if you have any questions, then obviously let me know in the comment section or join my Discord server. Link is all in the description below. But like aside from that, make sure you guys like and sub to the channel, and I'll see you lot in the next one. Peace out.